Today, I would like to share you the importance of Ngondro practice. With this, I will also like to explain to you why it is so important to practice. And the purpose of this recording is I would like to use this video in all the Zurmang Ngondro centers and with the help of resident lamas. Anyone who wishes to practice Ngondro will be helpful and beneficial. Before I discuss further, I would like to share some of the very important story of this lineage, so-called Whispering lineage. This lineage, in fact, comes from Vajradhara, known as Whispering lineage. So until fifth Karmapa, as Naropa predicted that Telopa will come as a human form. When the fifth Karmapa met Thomase Lord Rinchen, Thomase Karmapa knew that Thomase was the emanation of Telopa, Mahasiddha Telopa. And when Thomase met fifth Karmapa, he saw him as a true Manjushri. So this lineage goes back many generations. In fact, this lineage was established during 14th century. Thomase was born in a place called Minya. Since very young, he was very interested in practice, and he became he joined a monastery in Minya, and then everybody found that he was a very special boy. One day, what happened was, there were he and his Thomase and his family was residing near the cliff, and one of the stone rolled over, and somehow he was not hurt. And then a lot of people were so surprised that he was alive. And then later he said that one black man protected him. And there are such many stories about Thomase Lord Rinchen. So eventually he joined the temple and he became a monk, and he spent his life as a practitioner, layman practitioner. So later on, even though he had many teachers, almost 19 teachers, but when he heard about the name of fifth Karmapa, he had this very strong affiliation with fifth Karmapa, so he really wanted to meet fifth Karmapa. So he traveled to Central Tibet and Turpo. So eventually he managed to meet fifth Karmapa, and then the connection was there, and Karmapa bestowed him with all the teachings of Whispering lineage. And then he said that you should go to Eastern Tibet, where the palace of Chakrasambhava, the heart palace of Chakrasambhava exists, where you will be beneficial, and you can really liberate tremendous numbers of individuals. So as his advice, he traveled to Eastern Tibet. The story is very long. I'm trying to make it simple and short so that many of you can remember. So when you reach Eastern Tibet, and then a lot of people around there, Pumzong, the place called Pumzong, where people found him very special, and everybody welcomed him. And he said that I want to establish a monastery in near Pumzong. So a lot of people say, okay, I will take you a place, you can have a look. So he went to a place presently known as Zurmang, and in 3 different occasions. And then the first occasion, when he landed today's present Zurmang, he asked, what is the name of the? There was a small hill where the Zurmang monastery exists today, and they called this. They said that the hill of this name is Yangdili, which means the hill of fortune. And then the second day that he thought that it was very auspicious. Second day, because he was yogi, so he was poorly dressed. So some of the people were not convinced. So when a second day he went again to see around, and he met one old lady. So he said that I want to build a monastery here. Is it possible on the hilltop? And the old lady looked at him and said that, no, not just monastery. You can build 80-pillar monastery, because when you look at him, she couldn't believe that he could really build a monastery there. And somehow, she wanted to offend him, but then it became auspicious. The final day when he went again there, and then he met another old lady, and he asked again, can I build an 80-pillar monastery on the hilltop where the present Zurmang monastery is present? And the old lady replied by saying, oh no, not just 80 pillars, you can build actually, in fact, 108-pillar monastery. So the third auspicious sign was established. So he decided to build this present Zurmang monastery, not in Dupung Silnen, it's a kind of retreat center, a small retreat center where present Makala hall is present. And then he gathered, and then slowly many people start to follow him, and then his follower become larger and larger, and then he performed a very special ceremony. And during this ceremony, he said, we call it kempa, a kind of leaf. He said you should make this offering to all the places during the ceremonies. And one of the kempo, he went to offer all the places, different direction. And when he returned, he asked, Thomase Lodorincha asked, where you offer this leaves? He said everywhere but one place he offer most, one corner, one place. So that's how the name Zurmang was received. And since then, the practice of Zurmang Ngondro, or whispering lineage, established, and it is still flourishing even today. And I'm very happy to introduce this lineage to many new Dharma friends who are seriously wish to learn and practice. And as you know, especially in Kagyu lineage, I think Ngondro practice is one of the most important. We call it foundation, practice of foundation. And sometimes one may wonder, foundation is not so important. But in fact, many gurus in fact explain that preliminary are more important practice than the actual practice. Therefore, one should not take it for granted. And if anyone wish to be a very serious practitioner, we need to build a very perfect foundation. For instance, we may have a dream house. In order to live happily forever, one has to build a proper foundation, or else one day the house may just collapse and your dreams become suffering, part of suffering. Therefore, it is so important we should practice Ngondro. Of course, the moment, the day you become Buddhist, one does not need to really practice Ngondro, but eventually when we are prepared and when you are really serious and if one wishes to go further, then Ngondro is very, very important part of practice. It is not just a foundation, it gives also sense of urgency why we need to practice, or else we may lose somehow the motivation and determination to practice. So Ngondro has 8 different parts. First, we call it so-called 4 ordinary foundations and 4 extraordinary foundations. The 4 ordinary foundation includes the practice of impermanence, the practice of, firstly, the practice of precious human body, second, the practice of impermanence, third, the practice of cause and effect, and finally, the practice of Ethic of Samsara. These are known as 4 ordinary foundation. And once you complete or once you fully understand the importance of 4 ordinary foundation, then you will embrace the practice of 4 extraordinary foundation, which are, we begin with the practice of Guru Yoga in order to invoke the blessing of Guru, which is very, very important. Second, we learn the practice of purification of Vajrasattva. Third, the practice of cultivation of merit, which includes the practice of mandala. And finally, the practice of Guru Yoga. So basically, these are the 4 ordinary and extraordinary foundation. And during this practice discussion, I would like to use this version of book because there are many different versions in many different centers. They have printed different books. So I would like to use one book so we can standardize, so everybody can use the same standardized book, which is much more helpful to many. Or else everybody start using different books, then you may get confused. Now this is called Supplication Prayer of Excellence, teaching, practice, lineage holders, the melody or accomplish all the goals. So before we begin with the 4 ordinary foundation, there are many such as this one, Supplication Prayer, because uniquely in Tantrayana, gurus represent triple gem or 3 roots. And without the proper guidance of guru, even one wishes to practice, one may never see the result or the goal. One may not realize the goal. Therefore, it is very important to pray to Guru in order to get blessing and proper guidance, so that whatever we practice in life can be meaningful, and most importantly, we can be successful in our practices. So the first part, anyone who are practicing Ngondro, and if you, of course, I shouldn't say that, but I know when many of you, when you are living in the cities, sometimes you may not truly have time to practice. So for those group of students who have very limited time, I have a different suggestion. Or else, anyone who who are embracing the practice of foundation, you should always begin from the page 1, which is the supplication prayer for all the gurus and lineage holder, one must start from page 2 until page 4. Okay, and then this is the first part of supplication, and there's a second part, which is this called the prayers sprang from the pure vision dharma of the all-seeing Lama Jamyang Chenze Ompo. This is the second part of supplication. One should also recite this in order to invoke the blessing of gurus. And when you have time, however, even who have individual who wish to practice but who have very little time, must begin from page 5, which is the garland of jewel of supplication of the lineage of unequal Matiratna. From here, anyone who even may not have enough time must recite from here, because this is a very important part of supplication. So from page 5, you must recite this supplication until page 9. Until page 9, and then from page 10 there is a heap of clouds of blessing arising from supplicating the lineage. Again, one should begin from page 10 until page 12. So these are all part of supplication in order to invoke the blessing, so that whatever we practice, especially the Ngondro, we can be successful. Because many times we begin, we may practice for 1 or 2 days, but somehow we tend to have many excuses to stop for 1 day, 2 days, then 1 week, 1 month, and then sometimes there are people who never practice again. So in order to avoid all this so-called obstacle, and of course to make sure that we can continue with this practice and we can complete this practice, we need to pray to all the gurus. So this is the reason and purpose. But what is also important, I would like to advise all of you, when you begin to practice, of course you can watch this video in Zurmang Culture centers, but also you should get proper advice from resident lamas who can advise you how to practice the Ngondros. Okay? Once you have done that, then before we begin with the four preliminary practices, there are a few advice may be useful to all of you. So what we need to do here is the moment when you wake up, this is the practice that not during the Ngondro it is important, but it is also important every day. So moment you wake up early morning, you don't just jump out of bed and go somewhere else to listen to music, watch television. What you need to do is the moment you wake up, one has to simply visualize that all the Dakinis with their musical instruments are waking me up, or I'm awakened from ignorance, and you sit in meditation posture, and then press your ring finger and put on your hip like this, and raise your right arm like this, hit like this, and then close your right nostril and exhale from your left nostril. Again, place it back and raise your right arm and hit like this. Turn around your finger and block your right nostril, left nostril, and blow from left, right, like this, and place it back, and then blow together. So this moment, one has to visualize that all our leftover or negative energies, we remove totally, so your body is filled up with the positive energy. That's what you need to think about, visualize. Now this is the part of precious human body. So page 16, we need to recite the verses and then spend few seconds. Why human body is so precious? Why human body is so precious? We need to spend for a few moments, because even though human body is so difficult to obtain, especially precious human body. Many of us may have a human body, but we may not have a precious human body. In order to have precious human body, one has to be free from non-free states, and 5 personal and 5 circumstantial endowment. One has to acquire these 10 endowment, which you can learn from the lamas, and slowly you can learn. And once you have done that, then you recite the verses of impermanence, and you spend for a few seconds. Okay, why it is impermanent? It's impermanent means subject of change. Everything in life changes every second, every moment, and unless we practice, we will never know when we're going to die. Because there's a saying, rebirth is the beginning of death. Death is the beginning of rebirth. So everything changes, nothing remains forever. So we need to practice now, not tomorrow or day after tomorrow. The practice of moment is now. So by knowing impermanent, it helps us to understand the urgency of practice. Okay? So once you have recited and visualized for a moment, then you have to recite the verses of cause and effect, which explains us why it is important. Because, if we involve in act of non-virtue, we're going to face the effect of suffering. When we avoid the act of non-virtue, such as 10 evil action, 3 physical, 3 mental, and 4 verbal, then we end up with the more sufferings. The moment we avoid all this act of evil, then the result will be full of happiness and joy. So this helps us to avoid such acts. Okay, and finally, the effect of samsara, and then you again spend a few seconds when you recite the verses, which teaches us why we need to be careful. Because many of us, we may say, oh, this is my sweet home, but in fact, where the sweet home lies all our suffering, pain, because home is the place that a lot of things happens. So of course, one can't deny that there are temporal happiness at home, but at the same time there are so much of difficulty that we have to go through everyday life. So Nom is not a truly sweet home, but also there are so many things that we have to endure, therefore it's not a beautiful place. So once you have recited 4 ordinary foundation by spending few seconds, so now we have come to the first extraordinary foundation, which is refuge. Now this part is very, very important. So what we need to do is we should visualize, you can use the picture of refuge. Vajradhara, your guru, is central in the form of Vajradhara, surrounded by all the gurus, okay, lineage holders. And then of course, below the guru, there are all the yidams, mainly Chakrasambhava and all many other. And then below the yidam, there are all the protectors, mainly main one is 4 Makala, and there are many others. And you are in the center, and your father on the right side and mother on the left side. And then you need to make a prostration. So now when you make a prostration, you cannot cheat, okay? You make sure that you begin with touching your crown, and then your throat, then heart, or some may touch